This is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Perfect submission, all is at rest. I in my Savior am happy and blessed, watching and waiting, looking above, filled with his goodness and lost in his love. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long.
All right, thanks, Taylor. And thank you all for joining us this morning. Welcome. Again, I'm Pastor Nathan, and thrilled to have you with us here at Elk River Lutheran online for worship this morning. We will have this service that's full of music and some great conversation. Pretty great, I think, between us here, but awesome. Also great inviting you into the conversation. And so we're excited for that. Along with some, like I say, music and prayer and scripture. It's good to be gathered together this Sunday morning. Well, as we gather here this morning, I want to encourage you, if you haven't already found the PDF of the bulletin, our online bulletin is at our website, elkriverlutheran.org. You can find that to follow along with the music and the words, and the whole order of the service is there. And so I encourage you to find that. Also want to just highlight that after the service here today, we tried this last week and we're going to do this again. And we're going to have a coffee hour. And so we're going to open up the Zoom channel, which some of you are watching on Zoom right now. We're going to open that up so people can turn on their cameras and turn on their microphones and have some conversation. As it's set up for worship, we're just streaming, so we're the only mic that's on and the only camera. We'll, at the coffee hour following the service, invite people to jump on. So if you are on Facebook and watching this, you can go to our website, elkriverlutheran.org, and you can find the link for the worship is the same link for the coffee hour. So you can just click that Zoom link. And the first time you get on Zoom, it'll ask you to download an extension on a computer or an app on a phone or tablet. And so you can do that and then let Zoom have access to your camera and microphone. And there you go. You'll be right on the call with us. So hope to see some of you on there after worship. As we get started here, let's introduce, again, I'm Pastor Nathan, pastor here. Glad you're here.
I'm Lisa Sampson, and I'm the Director of Children, Youth, and Family Ministry.
Jeremy Hulquist, Minister of Congregational Care and Discipleship.
And I'm Taylor Quinn, the Director of Music and Worship.
Well, and one thing is we're really kind of trying to figure out the best way and kind of experiment a little bit with how to serve our kids without giving stressed out parents just one more thing to do. And so one thing that Lisa's been doing with Lift is putting together some little projects to go along with the story. And so I want to just introduce our story this morning. If there's any kids who are close by, you can be listening, because this is kind of an introduction for you too, and questions for you all to think about. And that is, this story that we hear this morning is a story of a guy who he couldn't walk. And Jesus came to his town, and some of his friends knew that if they could get their friend to Jesus, Jesus could probably heal him, and maybe would. And so they brought him to the house where Jesus was doing some teaching and healing, but it was full. And so guess where they took him? The roof. They took him up on the roof, and they broke a hole in the roof, and their friend was on this mat that they then lowered with ropes down through the ceiling. And instead of getting mad that they broke the ceiling, Jesus welcomes the guy and heals him. And so those friends did this great thing to help their friend who needed help and healing, and broke right into that home, and Jesus heals them. And so it's a really fun story about healing, but it's also a fun story about friendship. And so we want to encourage you to think about friends, adults and kids alike. We're going to be having some conversation about friends later on in the service here this morning. We want you to think about, who are your good friends who you think would maybe help you if you really needed help. And so we're going to have some conversation about that this morning. And Lisa sent out instructions for a little project if you want something to go along with the story. And what is that?
Sure. I actually picked two things, depending on how much you wanted to do. One of them is a diorama, which is where you make a scene. And so a shoebox or an Amazon box or something like that. And you can cut a hole in the roof, and you can actually make like a little mat, a little thing where you can lower maybe your Lego figures or something like that. And you can actually retell the story. And you can draw pictures on the inside to make it look like what the inside of that house maybe looked like. And then the other one is back in the day when the Bible story says that they laid, their friend was laying on a bed. It wasn't a bed like you and I sleep on at night. It was a mat, probably woven of fibers of some sort. And so you could make a mat, and you could make it little, like, for your diorama, or you could make it big and actually use it as a placemat when you eat. You can make it any size you want, but weaving some different things, construction paper, different colors through there. So 2 different projects if you want to try those.
Yeah, fun. Well, and so we're starting this series called Home Alone, where we're hearing these stories like this, where God shows up at home. In this case, Jesus is there and heals this man right there in this home that they were gathered in. And so we're excited to hear and think about the ways God shows up in our own homes as well over this next several weeks. And so we look forward to the conversation. Kids and families, I mentioned the Zoom coffee hour. We are excited to, as a part of that coffee hour time, for any families and kids that want to jump on that Zoom call as well, we're going to make a special breakout room for the family. So we'll all gather as a big group to get started, and then we'll send kids and families into their own little room to have some kid time with Lisa. So that'll be really fun. I hope that you can all jump on that Zoom call here in a little bit. But for now, we gather for worship. And so Taylor's going to lead us in our opening song.
Yep. This song is called Goodness of God. We've done it online church before, and I'll start with the chorus and we'll follow the PDF.
And maybe I'll say too, we always love it when you chime in and say good morning and check in where you're from in the comments. And so really encourage you to do that during this opening song too. Let us know who you are, where you're watching from, and let us greet you. So good morning and welcome.
All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire, darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father, known you as a friend. I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. All my life you have been faithful. If you know this, sing it out. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God.
Thanks, Taylor. And thank you all who are commenting and letting us know who's watching where. It's so fun to see you popping on here and joining in this way. It's neat to be gathered in this way and to know who all is here with us this morning. So if you haven't yet, by all means, comment and let us know who you are, where you're watching from. We love that. Well, this morning, as I mentioned, we already kind of told a little bit of the story from Luke chapter 5. It is the story of healing that takes place in a home where Jesus honors the friendship that these guys have. So let's go ahead and hear that story. Jeremy's going to read it for us this morning.
Perfect. So Luke 5, verses 17 to 26. One day while he was teaching, Pharisees and teachers of the law were sitting nearby. They had come from every village of Galilee and Judea and from Jerusalem, and the power of the Lord was with him to heal. Just then, some men came, carrying a paralyzed man on a bed. They were trying to bring him in and lay him before Jesus, but finding no way to bring him in because of the crowd, they went up on the roof and let him down with his bed through the tiles into the middle of the crowd in front of Jesus. When he saw their faith, he said, "Friend, your sins are forgiven you." Then the scribes and the Pharisees began to question, "Who is this who is speaking blasphemies? Who can forgive sins but God alone?" When Jesus perceived their questionings, he answered them, "Why do you raise such questions in your hearts? Which is easier to say, 'Your sins are forgiven you,' or to say, 'Stand up and walk'? But so that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins," he said to the one who was paralyzed, "I say to you, stand up and take your bed and go to your home." Immediately he stood up before them, took what he had been lying on, and went to his home, glorifying God. Amazement seized all of them, and they glorified God, and they were filled with awe, saying, "We have seen strange things today."
Yeah, I always love when a story ends in, wow, what a weird thing we just experienced, right? And it is, but it's this beautiful story of friendship and of healing. And, you know, we're thinking about home with this series, and this story takes place in a home. And one of the things Jesus tells the man after he's healed is, go home. Go back to your home. And so we're celebrating the home and friendships. And so the first question I want us to think about, and for these questions, we invite you to enter into the conversation at your homes and online in the comments as well. But the first question is thinking about friends, and thinking about those friends who you know you could rely on to get you out of a jam. So like, this is who you call when you need to get bailed out of jail, or, you know, if you're really in trouble, you got to move a couch maybe. Like, who is it that you love enough to inconvenience enough to help you carry something really heavy? You know, those kinds of things. And so I think we all can think of those friends who it is kind of a combination of love and trust and boy, they're going to help you even with something not real fun, right? So the question is, can you think of a friend or friends who would be the first you call if you're really in a pinch?
Like when you need something moved. Because I think if friends were honest, so you know your true friend if they will help you move.
Yes, absolutely.
No, I think of my friend Joe. We went to college together. We were college roommates. He's the one that has really always reached out to me about the friendship, and it's just it started out close and has maintained its closeness. And I'm grateful to have people like him in my life, because I've never been the one who's really reached out actively to friends, and so I appreciate having people in my life. There's just a handful that will continually reaching out, even though I'm not the greatest at maintaining it. So yeah, I think of my friend Joe.
I think, unfortunately, a lot of the friends that I have would be the ones who would be in jail next to me.
Okay,
The troublemakers in my life.
Together.
But they're also the ones that I think I hold the dearest, like my college roommates who, they're the people that I call first in a lot of times. And the other is a seminary classmate of mine who lives down in Iowa, but we shared a similar story very early on and connected throughout it. And he's the one I call when I'm having a bad day or struggling with something or trying to figure something out. And he's always this voice of reason that is there, but then laughs his head off at whatever it is we can relate to. So
Yeah, I've had 3 besties since high school and college, and even though 2 of them don't live anywhere near me, and we don't see each other that often, when we do see each other, it's like we never left. But I know I could call them, and at the drop of a hat, they'd do anything. They'd probably be next to me too in jail.
Yeah,
that is the problem. So,
sure. Yeah, I think certainly circumstances and situations kind of bears. Okay, who would I call for help with this? Who would I call for help with that? But I think for Annie and I, her brother has become just a really good friend to me. He's her brother, but not my brother. Just Uncle Paul. And he moved here shortly after we did to Elk River, and so we know that we can always ask him to help with anything. And even if it's the worst thing, last year he helped me dig like 25 fence post holes because we put in a fence. And no matter how hard or terrible the job is, he will agree to do it. He'll complain about it. He won't always happily do it, but he will help. He's just will always be there for us, and we know that. We love that about him. And so, I think those friends that's the kind of friends in the story here. It's a beautiful thing.
I love this question because it makes me think of who do I really have in my life. I normally don't. You go throughout life and you're doing your thing, but it's really making me think about who are the people that I can count on. Yeah. Names keep popping up.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so this next part of the question then, or next couple questions is, have you found it hard to be a good friend lately, and how have friendships changed? Because I think if there's one thing that's really different now, it's who you can be with and when. And so friendships, home has become so much of the focus, and, friendships have kind of changed. So those questions, have you found it hard to be a good friend lately, and how have those friendships changed? Even the really good, close ones. What do you think?
I think what's difficult for me is that I always invite friends to my house.
Sure.
And because we can't really do that, that's how the invitations have changed. That's how engaging in friends is different for me, because it's always been come into my home, Instead, it's just a different way of doing that.
Right.
I feel like I've been a terrible friend in the sense that Zoom and Instagram, Facebook, and all these mediums to connect on, and people seem to want to connect on one versus the other, and I get overwhelmed, and so then I forget about Facebook Messenger message or something. And so usually the best thing that I'm finding is phone calls are much easier for me to manage.
Sure.
And then I feel like I'm not forgetting people on the outskirts, and so technology has its limits too. If you're not able to respond to all of them.
Right.
Yeah, and it's just ongoing too.
Right.
For work, and then all of a sudden now it's, oh, this is how we communicate with friends. It's like this too. And yeah.
There's a group of people from seminary that I met my very first week there, and we started doing spiritual direction together. And those three people don't live in, they live farther away. One is in Illinois and one's in Wisconsin. And so we always talk on Zoom or by phone. And that relationship has remained the most constant because we're not doing anything different in this time. Mm-hmm. Where my other friendships, I'm not seeing my friends. Right. It's really hard.
Yeah.
I talked to a couple and it's really nice to touch base, but it's different.
Yeah.
I miss their faces. Mm-hmm. I miss touching them.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm so grateful for our time here. This has been a real blessing for us. Yeah. I mean, of course, we're talking on camera and talking about this life and, situation, but I mean, part of what makes us, I think, work is that we really do all like each other and enjoy, the opportunity to have these both kind of fun, lighthearted conversations and more deep and kind of serious conversations sometimes too. And so I've been really grateful for our time to be able to have the conversations here, and for all the folks, online to be entering into the conversation too. It's not the same, but it's been a real great thing. I'm grateful for it. Another friendship that I was thinking of, I'll kind of change it. So someone who works just half a block away here, who's become, I guess, in some ways kind of an unlikely, really great friend of mine, is Jeremy Jones, who's the head brewer at the brewery, Iyer Brewing. And, not only do we just work really close in proximity, but I remember first meeting him and kind of, he's the cool brewer guy with a big long beard. And so finally I'm like, okay, well, I'm a pastor right there. And usually when you tell people, this is kind of behind the curtain. Usually when I tell people I'm a pastor, they have a couple reactions. One is they apologize for not having gone to church wherever they've gone to church for a long time. They say, gosh, I just haven't been for a long time. And so the first is a confession. And then the second is they're just a little weirded out and uncomfortable. So anyways, that's usually how it goes. And that wasn't really the case with him. I thought that was so interesting. And, growing to know him more and get to know him, he largely grew up in Africa. His parents were missionaries there. And so he's pretty comfortable around pastors. And for all the ways that our childhoods and experiences in life have been different. I mean, he grew up largely in Africa and California. I grew up in North Dakota. We still just, have a lot in common and have just really grown to appreciate each other. And so that's just been a great friendship. And normally we're just so close by that we see each other a lot and our families get together. And part of the joys in this year was we got to, each share the news with each other that we were each going to have a baby. And so, they're having a baby at the first week of June. Our baby's due the end of May. And so it's like we're on this journey together. And so that had been a real great kind of fun blessing. And then, this whole thing happened and now we haven't seen them since, and in person, and so it's, that's been kind of a hard thing, because not only were we excited about, the pregnancy journey, but then we're going to have babies and we can be together with babies, because no one wants to hang out with people who have a baby. But, we can be together in our, crazy baby life. And so now that's a little different too. And so it's both there's a celebration of like great friendships, but also like some grief in that I think for a lot of us, those friendships aren't what we wish they were. They aren't what they have been because of limitations and how much we can physically be together. Yeah, that's a heavy thing to deal with, I think, sometimes.
Mm-hmm. It's sad. It makes me kind of sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, have you found some grief in friendships, I guess, or?
Yeah, I think, the sense of overwhelming, there's just so much in trying to maintain the day-to-day that, some of those people that either fostering or beginning friendships have kind of vanished, or, there's just challenge of trying to keep up with it all.
Yeah. So I think for us too, with the baby coming especially, we had planned on hosting a lot of visitors this summer, family coming to meet the baby. We had friends planning to come from Ohio and North Dakota, even from Canada. And so these were, on the schedule. These were happening, these visits, and now they're likely not. And, yeah, there's some grief and sadness in that where, now we're at home. This is what we do now, we're home. But I think one of the things that I want to highlight from this story and think about is that, in this story, home is a place of healing. Ultimately, Jesus heals this guy who can't walk, and his friends bring him there for the healing. So it is a great story of friendship, but it's also a story of healing that happens at home. And like I said earlier too, where Jesus tells him to go after he's healed is home. Go and be home in this space where you can enjoy and celebrate this healing that's taken place. And so what we're celebrating in this series is the fact that God shows up in our homes. That's what happens in these stories from the Bible, and it's what we want to think about. How does God show up in our homes? And so what I'd love for us to think about is, how have you experienced home as healing, or how can our homes be places of healing? Not just now, but always, but certainly in this time. How are home's a place of healing? Any thoughts?
I think home is my sanctuary. It's where I go to be quiet, to do whatever I need to do without anybody witnessing. I don't have to be on, I don't have to be somebody. And home is that place for me. And that's where I can control the chaos most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
You had mentioned last week, both Jared, we had talked about it, but that God isn't just present when good things are happening. Mm-hmm. God is also present when there's not good things happening. I think that was a huge dichotomy for me, and just this understanding that even if Daryl and I were to get an argument, God is there. There's a presence there that will kind of be there without leaving. I thought that was a really kind of profound and interesting way that our homes, a lot of us, the homes are places of healing and sanctuary and rest, like me in this present moment. But I remember, growing up, our household was I guess tumultuous, or it was stressful because my parents got divorced. And so it was, home wasn't always a calm place, because I had a single mom, I lived with a single mom, 4 of us kids trying to figure out how to be together. Dad was around and got remarried and whatnot, so we had family there. But I think just the fact that it was a split family was a stressful time. And so home wasn't always a place of healing for me, but to know that God was there, even there, too, was good to know. And an interesting thing to think about as an adult, where my home is a place of hospitality and healing. But even if there's something bad going on, God is still there,
And I think it's important to name that space of sometimes home isn't healing at all. Sure. Yep. And I think, Taylor, you nailed it right on the head, that God is still there. There's people that home is abusive and home is confrontational, or, it can be an unpleasant place. And yet we still think about this space where God dwells, and God showing up in people's story. So I think it's important to at least be aware that some of what's there is real. Right. What I find fascinating is that the friends take him out of his home to bring him before Jesus. Mm-hmm. They drop him through a roof, and Jesus says, "Now that you're healed, go back home." Yeah. So there's this space of both the challenge of being home and unwell, and the beauty of going home healed. Yeah. And I think there's that, how do we live in that space?
I think, how do we define home too? What is home?
Sure.
Especially if there's a situation where you actually live isn't healthy, or it's not calm and comfortable, or a sanctuary. Where is that place of home for you?
Because ultimately, it is a story of redemption. It is a story of healing. So there is illness and brokenness, but God breaks in the person of Jesus. God breaks in and brings healing. Now, it doesn't make who knows how long this guy was, paralyzed for. It doesn't make those years disappear. He still has had that painful time where he couldn't work. He had to totally rely on his friends for everything, But God shows up and brings healing. And so I think that's, as we think about our spaces, we can think about, for a lot of folks, thankfully, home is a refuge and a sanctuary and a place. But even if home isn't, where can we find rest and sanctuary and trust that God will show up in a redeeming way that'll bring new life and hope? Because we trust that God will. And that can be in any number of places that may be home-ish, and maybe not home literally, but be like home.
So when I was a kid, my dad and I had the same personality, and so we often were just explosive with each other. And so, I mean, it took me years to discover that he and I were the same kind of person. And so what I learned very early on is the place of refuge wasn't my home per se, but it was my neighbor's. And so I would go 4 houses down and spend most of my time and energy there. And then I would come home and able to deal with whatever I needed to with my dad. And my dad and I now have a great relationship, I think, in that we can talk rather than yell.
Sure.
And so, but I had to learn those spaces. And so I had to go experience home as a different center of refuge. And ultimately in that found a lot of healing, both with my own home of origin, as well as the place that I would escape to a lot. And I think those became very beautiful and wonderful things now that I look back on them at this point in my life. But I think we discover that God still has that presence and experience in both places. So,
yeah.
I love the idea of, I'll just say this because I'm an introvert, right? Like, I think we've established that.
Yeah.
But as an introvert, what's important for us is to go away from people to gain energy, right? But it does us no good to keep that energy for ourselves. That energy then can be used for when we insert ourselves back into society.
Sure.
And I think what you're talking about is similar, is if we find our homes not a healing place of healing, God allows us the space, and we can give ourselves the permission to also to find a place of healing where we can be healed, and then reinsert ourselves into the place where we can be that light. That's such an important thing to remember, is that even if you're in a hopeless place, you can find another place and then bring hope back into the place where you find hopelessness.
Right. It probes the serious question though: is your home a place of refuge now? The place as an adult, is their home created as that centering space? Or another way to think about that is, post-corona, do you have a list of people that you're already planning to invite into your home? You've been longing and excited about.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's telling of what we create in our own spaces right now. And whether it's healing or welcome or a place of refuge. I mean, there's some beautiful ways to think about the space we're creating now, and how to extend that to others.
Yeah.
And how to extend it to others. It's so important, I think, to know that you are not the only person who benefits from what you're benefiting from, is to take that out.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Because, sometimes we're the ones sitting on the mat with our friends carrying us, and sometimes we need to be the friend carrying the mat. And then, afterwards, I'm guessing, the Bible doesn't tell us, but I'm guessing those 4 friends were at that guy's house celebrating that healing, right?
And maybe fixing the roof.
Right, yeah. Maybe you were taking care of business a little bit too, yeah. But I think that, we need people to share our grief and hardships with, and to celebrate life with. And so in this time, it's a little different. It's a little harder. That's what we started talking about is friendships, and both the difficulty in nurturing them now, but the importance of it too. That this is a time to hold on to each other, more than let go, just because it's hard or different.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing a lot of that too, like our community care teams. I'm just loving the fact that we have members who are calling other members right now. And just saying, hey, I want to check in on you, and I want to see how you're doing. In a way, they're carrying the mat of their friend.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's just a beautiful piece of the church being a loving and compassionate person as well.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
Well, Taylor, you've been bringing people together musically in a different kind of way, and it's so on theme here too. Could you tell us a little bit about the song we're going to hear next?
Yeah,
and see, I guess.
Yeah. So this you're going to see a music video put together. It's called "Hold Us Together," and I wanted to reach out to my contemporary musicians or musicians that want to do contemporary music, and I found this song by Matt Maher. And Matt Maher has always been a musician that I follow, and we do a lot of his songs here at church because I think he writes stuff that really pertains to who we are. But I found this song called "Hold Us Together," and I want to read the words of the chorus to you, but I also want to tell you who's in the video because the PDF and the video doesn't tell you who it is. But first, the words of the chorus is, and love will hold us together, make us a shelter to weather the storm, and I'll be my brother's keeper, so the whole world will know that we're not alone. I've just fallen in love with this song, and in this video you will see a number of musicians who sent in their videos, and we put this video together. And I want to name who they are before we get to them.
Sure.
Well, you'll see Asley Welton, Ben Williams, Ron Sass, Katie Carlson, Becca Weber, Ellie Hallquist, Emma Anderson, Cara Hennig, Chuck Anderson, Emily Rotz, Donna Heaston. You will see them and hear them, and I really hope that this song brings you joy and also a sense of hope and healing throughout your day and throughout your life. So here is "Hold Us Together," performed by various musicians of Elk River Lutheran Church.
You don't have a job, you don't pay your bills, won't buy you a home in Beverly Hills. Won't fix your life in 5 easy steps. Ain't a lot of the land to government, but it's all you need, and love will hold us together, make us a shelter to weather the storm, and I'll be my brother's keeper, so the whole world will know that we're not alone. It's waiting for you, knocking at your door. In the morning and true, with your heart against the floor, and you're on your knees, and love will hold us together, make us a shelter to weather the storm, and I'll be my brother's keeper, so the whole world will know that we're not alone. This is the first day of the rest of your life. This is the first day of the rest of your life. 'Cause even in the dark, you can still see the light. It's gonna be alright. It's gonna be alright. This is the first day of the rest of your life. This is the first day of the rest of your life. 'Cause can still see the light. It's gonna be alright. It's gonna be alright. And love will hold us together, make us a shelter to weather the storm. And I'll be my brother's keeper, so all I will know that we're not alone.
I am so happy about that. I forgot to mention, there's one musician that I didn't mention. It's Kara's Bird. I wish I knew the name.
Yes, and so if you missed the bird, you can check it out. We'll add that video standalone to Facebook later today.
Yeah, and we'll also link it to our YouTube channel. So if you didn't know that's out there, YouTube, Elk River Lutheran Church.
Yeah. Well, thank you all you musicians for putting in the time and the work to record that, and Taylor, for you for piecing it together. It is such a gift to have our musicians together virtually and to have it in that way. And that song is just perfect for here today as we think about holding on to each other and being in this life together. So another way we come together as people of faith is in prayer. And so we're going to continue with a time of prayer. And so during this time of prayer, Taylor will be singing a song for us. I think Bee is accompanying virtually, and Taylor will lead us in singing How Great Thou Art. But during this time, it's a time where we invite you to enter into a time of prayer. Listen to the music, sing along, but also take time in prayer as well. And if you want to share prayers in the comments online, you're welcome to do that. Or you can share prayer requests through our website, or obviously just between you and God, lift up these prayers. And so we'll have this time of prayer, and then Jeremy will draw us to a close following the song, and we will pray together the Lord's Prayer. So Taylor, why don't you lead us into the song in this time of prayer?
O Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the works thy hands have made, I see the stars, hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe displayed. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. When through the woods and forest glades I wander, I hear the birds sing sweetly in the trees. When I look down from lofty mountain grandeur, and hear the brook and feel the gentle breeze, then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Oh, when I think that God his Son not sparing sent him to die, I scarce can take it in, that on the cross, my burden gladly bearing, he bled and died to take away my sin. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art.
Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art.
Let us pray. Loving God, we thank you for the opportunity to gather in our homes and in places that ideally are refuge. But we pray for those homes that aren't, where challenges may arise. We pray that you would enter into those spaces with renewed sense of hope, that you would bring your children together in community to love and support one another. We lift up the prayers of your people, and you teach us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
This time we'll continue with our offering, and as a word of thanks during this offering time, I want to again just thank the musicians who have been working with Taylor and sharing musical gifts virtually during this time. And I'm guessing if you are a musician and you haven't done something like but would like to, Taylor would welcome your sharing of music. So get in touch with Taylor. He'd be happy to help you share those musical gifts during this time. The other thing I would say is, Jeremy mentioned our community care team. That's a group of folks who are calling people on our membership list. And so thank you to all of you who are sharing your gifts in that way as well. And encourage all of you to, this week especially, as we're talking about friendships and caring for one another, think about whose mat you might be carrying and who you might want to give a call to this week. I think that's a good encouragement for all of us. Finally, then, the financial offering piece of the church, we thank you for continuing to support the mission and ministry of Elk River Lutheran, and we encourage you and to remind you, I guess, that given these 3 different ways that are still available,
We forgot our
it's a
sign.
good sign. You can give online via our website, elkriverlutheran.org, through a service called Tithely. So there's ways to text to give or give online or even via app. And so you can check those out. Or else by mail, we're at 729 Main Street here in Elk River. You can mail offering, or we do have a locked mailbox right outside the front door of the church that many people have been dropping envelopes of offering in there, and so you're invited to do that as well. That's checked pretty regularly. So those are the words of offering. We thank you for your generosity, for your love and support of this church. And as we draw to a close, share this blessing with you. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord's face shine on you with grace and mercy. May the Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Taylor.
We'll end with, I'm so glad Jesus lifted me.
I'm so glad Jesus lifted me. I'm so glad Jesus lifted me. I'm so glad Jesus lifted me. Singing glory, hallelujah. Jesus lifted me. Sickness had me bound, but Jesus lifted me. Sickness had me bound, but Jesus lifted me. Sickness had me bound, but Jesus lifted me. Singing glory, hallelujah. Jesus lifted me. When I was in trouble, Jesus lifted me. When I was in trouble, Jesus lifted me. When I was in trouble, Jesus lifted me. Singing glory, hallelujah. Jesus lifted me.
Yes, thank you, Taylor, and thank you all for lifting us this morning. It's so great to be here with you in this way. And a couple of quick announcements before we go. One last reminder about the virtual coffee hour. We invite you, if you're on Zoom, just to stick around. If you're on Facebook, after this video ends, we invite you to jump off of Facebook and head over to the Zoom link, which you can find on our website or in the weekly email, if that's an email you get. The worship link is the coffee hour link as well, so you can click that and find us on the Zoom. And also this coming Monday night, Taylor has something fun coming up. You want to say a word about Beer and Hymns?
Beer and Hymns again. We are the tomorrow night at 6:30. I'll do another Beer and Hymns set like what I did about a month ago. We're going to raise money for CARE, but specifically for kids' kits, the program where they provide meals for kids, especially through school. But with school done, they do even more work. And so send in your requests. I got a number of them. It can be anything you want. And we might even hear from CARE. They might put a video together or something for us to listen to them. And we'll go from 6:30 to maybe 7:15, 7:30 tomorrow night.
All right, great. Well, that'll be a fun time too. So be ready to be online at 6:30 tomorrow night. We'll be there with Beer and Hymns. So with that, we'll be jumping on the Zoom coffee hour here in a little bit. Kids and families also, welcome. We'll get you into your own special room. So with that, as we go, we send you with this blessing. Go in peace. Share the good news.
We will. Thanks be to God.
Thanks, everybody.